coming of a nation. As we left our friends upon that beach, for unto us once ago, their bodies part of Turkish soil where the poppies gently blow. But it was not the end, for the end had not begun. We sailed to face a new enemy, gone for the front. ANZAC Day, a time to remember those courageous New Zealanders and Australians who have put their lives on the line, going beyond the call of duty for our country in times of strife and war. For many of us, ANZAC Day signifies the two world wars or other conflicts such as the Boer War, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan and Iraq. For most of us, ANZAC Day particularly signifies the sacrifices that were made at Gallipoli and the day that the ANZAC name was forever cemented in history. What happened to the New Zealanders after the grisly fighting of 1915? There were many battles that followed in the coming years, including Messines and Passchendaele, but it was the Battle of Somme that took place 100 years ago, and perhaps overshadowed by Gallipoli, which became one of the most costly battles of all time. The First World War was meant to consist of quick and mobile tactics. Over by Christmas, it was said to be. But a quick war it was not, and battles soon turned into 100-day offences. The result? Terrible slaughter and bitter stalemate, and like Gallipoli, Somme was no exception. The battle took place around the Somme River region in northern France and began in July 1916. The British aimed to relieve the French efforts at Verdun with a concentrated attack designed to crack German lines once and for all. The unspeakable reality for the British was 60,000 casualties in the first day alone. Another big push was planned for September, and this is where the New Zealand division came into action. Many of the men involved had survived Gallipoli and were reinforced by 5,000 new recruits. Our Somme experience began on the 12th of September and proved to be a very different battle to Gallipoli. Gas shells, large-scale artillery, and an experienced opponent all took an overwhelming toll, not to mention the cold, muddy, and miserable conditions. At one point, the companies of the Otago Battalion were cut down by machine guns, and left with almost one man standing. By the time the 15,000-strong New Zealand Division withdrew in October, they had 6,000 injured and lost over 2,000 men, 600 of these on the first day alone, one of the worst days in New Zealand military history. It was an expensive victory, one of the most expensive of all time. 1 million lives lost on both sides for the sake of 12 kilometres ground. Amongst these men were two ANZAC survivors, my great-great-uncle Bill Leadley and my great-grandfather Horace McCormick. Bill had been part of the Gallipoli landings as a signaller in 1915 and had kept detailed diaries of his war experiences. He remained at ANZAC Cove until September, when he became seriously ill and was evacuated to Egypt aboard hospital ship Mahina. After being reunited with his regiment in Egypt, he was sent to France and promoted to Sergeant Major of the Canterbury Company. On September 10, 1916, he was sent into the firing line at Somme as part of the New Zealand offensive. Only 14 days later, he was seriously injured, with a piece of shrapnel lodging so close to his brain he was thought to be dead. He lay amongst the wounded for 48 hours before being rescued, and it was his stretcher bearer, who was also shot during the rescue, who recounted the story to him as they lay beside each other in hospital. Bill recovered from his injuries, but it meant the end of the war for him, and he was sent back to New Zealand, where he later married. Bill's diaries tell of another compelling story of his short time at Somme. At one stage he was trapped in a foxhole in no man's land for many hours with an English soldier named Harold Francis Stratton. They thought their last days had come and vowed that if they survived the war, they would name their first sons after each other. Bill, whose full name was Walter Edmund, kept his promise, and many years later there was a knock on his son, Harold Francis Leadley's door. The man introduced himself as Walter Edmund Stratton. Amazingly, he was the son of the soldier whom Bill had met at the foxhole at Somme almost 50 years earlier. Also at the Somme, but serving with the Wellington Regiment, was my great-grandfather Horace McCormick. He had been part of the Samoan Advance Party in 1914, before arriving at Gallipoli for the Battle of Chanakbar. until evacuation in December. He was sent to Egypt and then on to France in April 1916, where he fought in the Somme and later at Messines and Passchendaele. He spent a total of 936 days on the Western Front, where he was promoted to sergeant and then second lieutenant, and remained until the end of the war, arriving back in Wellington in 1919. He became a lawyer and later a farmer, and was also a New Zealand team official for the 1936 Berlin Olympics and the 1938 Sydney Empire Games. A stirring photo of Horace at the 1936 Berlin Olympics depicts him with the New Zealand team, surrounded by Nazi guards, a grim reminder of what was to come. Before the battles of Gallipoli and Somme, the New Zealanders were doubted by the British generals, and they knew that. By the time the campaigns had ended, the ANZACs had proven the strength of a nation, regardless of its size. In doing so, they forged an identity, a new national identity, for it was in the trenches of World War I that New Zealanders began to refer to themselves as Kiwis for the first time. A quote by Ormond E. Burden, a New Zealand soldier, expresses this. Somewhere between the landing ANZAC and the end of the Battle of Somme, New Zealand very definitely became a nation. The defeat at Gallipoli and the Somme slaughter were not setbacks, but triumphs. The New Zealand men in World War I were praised by friend and foe alike. My great-great-uncle, Bill Leadley, said this of the New Zealand soldiers. These are the finest fighting men I have ever seen. I think we should remember them as the men and women whose bloodshed and spirit created a nation. In the words of an unidentified German soldier, the tragedy of the Somme battle was that the best soldiers, the stoutest-hearted men, were lost. Their numbers were replaceable. Their spiritual worth never could be, lest we forget.
Ngā mihi mahana ki o koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou koutou. President John and Rotarians, Mr. and Mrs. McCormick, greetings to you all. Thank you for inviting me along. I actually have met, and faces are really familiar. It's getting to that point where I think it's time for me to join.
Yes. Yeah.
So you promised.
I did promise, and this time we're going to keep that promise.
Good man.
So President John and myself will have a chat about how we can work that. But look, I love the work our Rotarians do year in, year out. I was a Rotarian in my previous school. I'm familiar with how you operate and the good work that you do in our communities across the country and across the planet. Well done. Thank you again, Ethan. We deliberately positioned Ethan to go first so that you could see how good he was and how good we are. In just 10 weeks, we were able to produce something spectacular like that, and nurturing Ethan to present a speech that is outstanding. Forget about Somerville and all the work they did with him. Forget about his parents that did all the nurturing before. We will take the credit. Not quite. But look, Nathan, well done. Ethan, well done to you, and really pleased and really proud moment for me as principal and the college and community to have someone speak so well. I remember when I was your age, in preparing for my speech at school, I got excited about it. I really wanted to participate in it. I remember going home, going into my room, shutting the door, and learning the speech off by heart. It was, it was an amazing speech, if I don't say myself. And And I was ready for the next day. We all had to stand up in front of the class and present that. And this was my moment. And so I wasn't quite as organised as Ethan to have cue cards. So I had a bit of paper. But I was ready. And it all went downhill from there, unfortunately. I still remember my bit of paper in my hand there. I learnt all these jokes that I knew. I cue them really, really well, so you'd laugh when you're supposed to laugh, and everything would come together really well. Anyway, I stood up in front of my class, and my hand was shaking like that. I couldn't read the words anymore. No one laughed at, no, they did laugh at the jokes, but they laughed at everything other than when they should have been laughing at it. It was a disaster. So I take my hat off to you, Ethan. It takes, and I watch you, and you're articulate, you speak really well. Just an amazing skill a young person needs to have in this time. So congratulations again. I digress, and I'll put your paper back there. So I have learned a few things along the way, and I can present a little bit better than I did way back then. Again, thank you everyone for allowing me to come in. This is a really quick cameo of our school's progress over the last, when was the last time we came here? About 2 or 3 years ago. So, high expectations. We wanted to keep the school moving forward, and that's exactly what we've done. So, after all that, I haven't turned this on, not that I need it, but pretty cool having it. Again, just to recap, we are a school of 2,016 students. We were at decile 10. We dropped a couple of years ago. And still a really diverse school. Lots of ethnicities, lots of differences, and that's a real strength for our community. We have a new vision. The last time we were here, we had a vision that said equipping individuals for lifelong learning. And that served its time really well for a number of years. But what we felt as a school community was that it no longer was serving us moving into the future. Equipping individuals for lifelong learning had a sense of a ceiling. So we would equip Ethan, and somehow it wasn't aspirational enough. So we got them to the line, and that was enough. Our job was done. Of course, it's never done. What we wanted now is to be inspiring young people. Hence, the new vision. There is an emphasis on inspiration, not just for the students, but for us as the professionals. I want to leave here, wait for it, inspiring you to think that the school's in a good place. I want to inspire my colleague. I want to inspire Joseph. Joseph will inspire his colleagues in his science department. I want our students, like Ethan, to inspire his peers. So that's why that is so important moving forward. It's an expectation that we want moving forward, and it's an expectation that we would see our school moving forward. Of course, the community there is also, we have a larger responsibility than just Howick College. We have a responsibility to the community, and that's why that word is in there. You won't get the passion unless you have the inspiration. Our new vision. Our role. One of the main indicators of a school doing reasonably well is what our student role is doing. And so from that, and you'll get the general gist of it, starts from 2010 and goes all the way to 2016. The general trend is an upward. So way back in 2010 we had about 1,820. We're now up to 1,920 local students. We also have 100 international, so it pushes us over to a community of over 2,000 people. In short, the school is a lot more attractive now than it has been. What's probably critically important for us as a staff is that we attract our Year 9. Our Year 9 students like Ethan. We want our best and our brightest local kids to come to Howick. We don't want them going outside to other schools. We want to be a school that serves our local community. And so we look at our Year 9 intake year after year and do a lot of analysis in terms of who is actually coming to us. So this really, really messy graph there is really just a summary of our Year 9 intake. The blue is our in-zone students. The red are our out-of-zone students. And the green is the total number of students that we have. So again, from 2011 all the way through, you'll see that there's been a relatively steady number of students coming in at Year 9, but we're still getting a lot more in-zone than out of zone. Our aim is that we want to serve our local community. We're still getting a significant number of out-of-zone students attending Howick. A better graph, again, still focusing on Year 9, is in percentages, and apologies, you can't see that at all. I can't see it from here. But anyway, in short, what this is showing is the percentages of in-zone and out-of-zone students. So in 2011, we had 40% of our outer zones making up the Year 9 intake. 40%. It's a fair number. In 2016, that's actually dropped down to 34. Our in-zone students in 2011 was 60%, and that's grown to 66%. For us, that's really pleasing. We're getting a bigger in-zone number of students, and our outer zoners is decreasing. We're getting more in-zone students, and again, thank you for supporting us. One of the strategies in which we attract our best and brightest, so they don't move away, is our entrance Howick Rotary Club scholarships. They play a part in turning around some of that trend. So we're getting more students at Year 9. We're becoming a lot more attractive to our wider community. We're getting more local Year 9 students, and we're getting fewer outer zoners coming in. Ideally, we want to fill the school with 100% of in-zone students. Now, we don't have 430 odd Year 9 students in our community. We know that, but we know that we have more places available of Year 9 students who are still here but choose to go elsewhere. So that's a good indicator. The other really positive thing about our achievement is our ERO report. We had the Education Review Office come into the school last year. They do a 3-year review of schools across the country, and this is one of the most powerful indicators of a school's effectiveness. And I'll quickly just run through some of their comments that they made. So they focus on 4 key areas in the report. One, they provide the context for the school. They focus on what the school is doing about learning, what the school is doing in terms of curriculum, And the last one, perhaps just as important, is whether or not the school has got the capability to sustain any improvements that it makes. The risk that we always had was, that we would do something miraculous and then throw all our energy into that for the whole year, but then die of exhaustion in the following year and not being able to sustain it any years after that, which was a bit of a waste of time. So that's never ever been too far away from our conscience. So into the report, through their inquiry for the time that they were with us, they had commented on these bullet point things here in terms of background information that they saw evidence of. Number one, they believed the sincerity of our new vision. They understood what that actually meant for a school community to change direction a little bit and have a vision that actually was preparing them for the future. They talked a little bit about the growth in our role. They spoke about the strong learning community that we have within the school and our relationship with our parents. They talked about the previous reports that we had, and it was all, if you recall, 3 years ago, it was all around having expectations. Fingers were crossed, toes were crossed, and everything else was crossed in that we would hope to see this. So that they saw lots of that positive stuff. And the last one there was they saw some plans around how we were going to prepare our learning site to support learning. Into the report, and you'll see that in terms of the fourth one there, the sustainable performance, that is what they were tagging against all of those areas that they were looking carefully into. It's good to have it, but you've got to have something in there that actually ensures that it is sustainable. And so next to each one of these key focus areas, you'll see a little caption which you can't read because you can't quite decipher that. It says, very well placed. And that in the end plays a really big part in terms of the final report. So anyway, the most important bit, the learning, and this is really about how students learn. How do students learn at Howick College? How does it occur? What do the teachers do to ensure learning happens? And so they mentioned, some of the initiatives that we're running in the school, and it was around how we teach, how we learn to teach. They saw evidence of some really powerful leadership across the school, and I'm not just talking about the senior leadership team, but other teachers who have responsibility, the deans, the heads of learning areas, the assistants, right across the school. So they saw plenty of evidence of that. They saw coaching, which is a relatively new initiative for the school, and that is simply in terms of a sporting context, very similar. If you want to get the best out of your classroom teachers, then you've got to have someone who's going to mentor them and actually coach them through how this is actually going to unfold. And they also noticed that we were really collaborative. We weren't trying to do things on our own. We know that the responsibility for a young person's learning isn't mine or yours, it's collective. And so and it's really pleasing to see that they picked that up. As a school community, we were all in it together. And many of the things that we were doing demonstrated that. Still on learning, because it's such a big one, again, these were some of the things they found in their evidence. So we scrutinise the data. Again, sometimes you can sort of skip over and think, oh yeah, this is a good idea, so I feel it in my heart, let's go for it. But actually you need to be a little bit more scientific than that. You must have data. And so we use a lot of student data in a variety of different forms to make decisions, and they notice that, particularly around how we do create courses. But things like tracking and monitoring of students, particularly our priority learners, our Māori and our Pasifika, our NCA achievement data is the same and equal to, and in some places better than other similar type schools. So that was a big tick. And lots of examples where we were supporting students be better than before. Māori and Pasifika students, of course, are two ethnic groups that history has, and evidence, has told us are most likely not to succeed in our educational system. So quite a major focus for the Ministry of Education and for our college as well. And again, some really good initiatives around supporting those students of that ethnicity. Curriculum, what is being taught? How is it being taught? And again, from their review of the college, it's this bit here that I think is probably the most pleasing, which is why it's in capitals. Consistently high teaching proficiency. And it's not just happening on that table or that one or that one. Consistently across the school, there were examples of high teaching competency. And that was really encouraging to see that as well. So, and probably the last important point in curriculum is how we measure our performance. And you know, the feedback that we got from them in the report was that our appraisal system was an outstanding one. And that's how we measure our performance in the end, is honest reflection on how well we are doing our job using evidence from a range of different sources. Mainly, no, I won't say mainly, but a big part of the evidence comes from the students. And that's all part of our appraisal system. It was really good. They were, you know, quite encouraging, really, that we had a system that was actually, and it can be really difficult sitting down with a staff member and being that honest person who gives critique. But we're certainly on the right path. We are collectively responsible. And, you know, we don't want to push ourselves in a corner and think my failure is mine and mine alone. We all have a part to play in that. And this is the biggie. And, you know, despite everything else, and again, if we went back there, we had curriculum, very well placed. We had Māori and Pasifika students, very well placed. Learning, very well placed. And so all of those add up to whether or not overall we can sustain it. And what they reported was that, you know, there was a real sense of clarity in terms of what we wanted to achieve in our direction. There was coherence. It wasn't higgledy-piggledy. It wasn't someone doing something over here and some people were talking together and working collaboratively. Leadership practice was strong. The culture of continuous improvement, better than before, was evident right across the school. We evaluate often. We use data to decide what next steps should be. Very well placed. Compliance, no health and safety issues, and international students, who we had nearly 100 of, experience a really safe environment. So, ERO differentiate in their reports across the country. They give schools 1 or 2 year cycle of review, And this generally indicates that they're not particularly happy with the school's performance and that they will need to do another review within that time frame. The standard time frame is about 3 years. So the last time we were reviewed, we got 3 years. Pretty stock and standard. Pleased to say that this year we were given a 4 to 5 year cycle of self-review, which is considered exceptional performance. And only about 12% of schools across the country receive those. There's quite a number of schools, because we're lucky in East Auckland, that have that. But look, we're really, really proud of that. For us, it sort of summed up a lot of the work that we did over the last 3 years. We knew we were on the right path. ERO came in and confirmed all of that. And so to get the 4 to 5 cycle of self-review was really, really pleasing for us as a community, because we share a responsibility. The worst thing that can happen is that they come back in 4 to 5 years' time and we slip backwards. Achieving 90% so far, and I have deliberately not put up the numbers. We've got 80% right across level 1, 2 and 3 NCEA. And every year we've improved slightly, but our ultimate aim is 90%. And we won't rest until we get the 90. Other challenges within our NCEA qualification at the school is some boys are not achieving anywhere near as well as girls. That's an issue for us. Nationally it is significant, but Howick College in particular has an even greater concern. Ethan being the exception to that. But anyway, girls outperformed the boys.
Yes, well.
And excellence endorsements. Excellence performance in NCEA, you can get NCEA endorsed with Achieved, or you can get it endorsed with Merit and Excellence. So we get many of our kids through. We get some through at a Merit and very few at Excellence level. And again, this is a little bit where our thinking was around equipping individuals for lifelong learning. You get them to the line, that's a 50%er job done. And that's part of the problem. We want to inspire them to actually get to the excellence endorsements. My daughter, who goes to another school, got her level 1 endorsed with excellence.
Great.
Yeah, it was great. It was a proud moment. But that should be for all young people. Next one there, staff recruitment and retention. Maths, and Joseph will tell you often, getting quality maths and science teachers in New Zealand at the moment is a serious concern. Serious. And if we're going to achieve our vision, we need to get them in our place, because we just don't have enough of them at the moment. So we're starting to do some thinking around how we can be a little bit more different around recruitment and retention. Maybe next time I come, I'll tell you a little about some of those plans, but they'll be different. Strong alumni, we're 43 years old now. I don't think we bring our former students back in, and that's another area that we're working on. A COL, or community of learning, is something that's consistent with what we are trying to do. Reach out into the community and actually be part of it, rather than this isolated school that pushes everyone away and does its own thing. Teaching and learning is a shared responsibility. And the last one there is with all the improvements we're doing with teaching and learning in the classroom, we need to make sure our site is physically supporting the type of teaching and learning that we want, and not a 1950s school that I was going to say you and I went to, but maybe not. The worst thing about schools, even for me, is going into a school after you've been out of it for, how long have I been out of school for? 40 years. No, not 40 years. 30 years. 30, a little over 30, 32 years. And some of the classrooms at Howick still look exactly the same as when I went there. It's not good. Teaching and learning's moved on. Got to look different. And that is really just to make sure we are a modern learning environment to cater for your grandchildren. Thank you so much again for listening to my kōrero. Some good things. We're really pleased with the progress, and I appreciate every single one of your support, individually and as a Rotary Club. We will continue to do good things because we know that we have some really strong people in the background that back us every step of the way. So I appreciate that and wish you well for the year. Thank you.
Eva, just before you go, are there any questions that anyone might have? Just getting there, John. You've got a couple of questions here.
Sorry.
Being a retired person, I walk around the area in the mornings. I see all these coaches of your students come from out of zone coming in. How far is the catchment area for those out of zone students?
Good question, Joseph. How big is our catchment area?
There are a number of students come from Moana, which is past Manarewa. There's some students come from Hunua. All the students between Kawakawa Bay and Clevedon come to us. There are quite a number come from down the corridor towards Flatbush, but there's a smattering come from all over. So those are as far away as they get. Up the other way, we get a few from around Pamua area, but mostly there are other good schools between us and there, so they will apply for out of zone to their closest schools. But we are one of the few southeastern schools that can offer places to the parents want to send their kids to, that offer places to those other southern areas. And personally, I think it's great. It brings a much richer mix into the school, and it definitely enriches our school, and the students that come there rub shoulders with other Kiwis other than our little Howick enclave. But I know that our preference is to provide for our locals first, and of course as time goes on, more and more students will be coming from beachlands as that area gets developed, and will mean fewer places, in a way sadly, for those people to live in.
Thanks, Joseph. Yes, Ted and then Gavin.
Just another one on the zoning. Where does your zone and Botany sort of finish?
Great question. All for Joseph. Yeah.
Quite close really. We take both sides of Whitford Road. They take the far side of Whitford Road, the southern side of Whitford Road. And then it goes down Chapel Road, down the middle of Chapel Road. We've got an overlap zone between Kilkenny and, not Millhouse, but the one that's just up from Millhouse. There's a little area in there that both zones. And Golflands, we take Golflands. Yeah. So it's just a small overlap zone in there around this side of Botany.
Gavin?
How does one increase from a decile 8 to a 10, for instance?
We were actually pleased that our decile went down. We never really considered ourselves as a decile 10 school to begin with. And
I look after the enrolment,
Thank God
so
for
it doesn't.
Jesse principles.
The decile rating is based on a whole lot of factors, not just the wealth of people, but how many bedrooms per child there are in a children's bedroom, and so on. So there's about 8 or 10 factors they look at, and then they give the school a rating based on that. Maclean's dropped to decile 9. Pakuranga is decile 7. I'm not sure what botany is, but 8 is it? Yeah. So yeah, they did a big adjustment recently. It was prior to that it had been based on the 2005, was it? Census, and then we didn't have the census with Christchurch, and so it was this long carryover from those early times.
And there's kind of a difference, isn't there, between a decile 10 and a decile 10, you know,
Yeah.
even within that. I mean, you can have a decile 10 in one area where it genuinely is a decile 10 going on decile 15, and then you get a decile 10 that's really going on decile 8. So there's that differential, yes.
Eva, to move an organisation into being inspirational, like, what was the most significant cultural hurdle you had to face?
We're not inspirational just yet. That's our aspirational goal. When you see inspiration at every corner of the school, then we would. Look, there's been a lot of factors in terms of shifting the school over the years. I think when the rubber hits the road, the difference is in the classroom with the classroom teachers. And if what I've seen is the teachers have actually been prepared to roll their sleeves up and actually teach in a way that is consistent with evidence that shows how you can move a young person from there to there, a merit from an excellence. And so we did a lot of work on what actually effective teaching actually looks like. And I think that's probably made the really biggest difference in a relatively short period of time. Again, our challenge is really just making sure that we're being able to sustain that now, moving towards that magical 90%. But the numbers, the 90%, whilst it's important, it's a really good target to aim for. It's really just if you're teaching really well, if you've got your school really well organised and everyone knows exactly what they're doing, then you'll get to that 90 even before you know it. So, a number of factors, but I think good teaching is certainly making it. In the end, the staff member in the class there for 5 hours a day has to be the difference because they spent most of the time with the young people. And if a young person can get that same experience each period they move from subject to subject, it's a pretty good number.
Thank you very much. David?
Can I have a question?
Well,
It's a short one.
you are
It's a
supposed
short
to be thinking.
I will.
But all right, roll them both into one.
Has your school got a maximum roll?
Funny enough, Joseph, I'm not going to refer to you this time. But before my time, we had a maximum roll, I think, of about 2,300, 2,400 even. That was a maximum roll based on the number of seats in the school. We've had some classrooms removed from the site, so our roll is based only on the space that we have. And that roll is still higher than we have at the moment. We have 2,016 students, and I think we can probably take up to 2,000.
I think it's 2,120 or something. No,
So
it's
you
not
haven't got
long.
a lot of manoeuvrability.
No. But of course, the outer zone students don't generate
Property.
the funding in the same way as local students do.
Now, David, would you like to perhaps do the second roll?
Perhaps.
President John, members and guests, Eva, it's lovely to have you here this evening. Ethan, what an inspiring presentation for a Year 9 student to be able to speak as well as you spoke and on a subject that is important to everyone here. I think your presentation was one I was very pleased to hear, and I'm so happy that the younger people of today are listening to and learning from the experiences that our forebears had during that time. So thank you for your presentation very much. Eva, lovely to have you here again. again, I'm quite proud that I live in a community that has Howick College sort of at its heart, if you like. What you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, I can see is certainly positive and can only reap rewards for our community in terms of the students that it produces. It can enrich our community, which is what schools, I guess, are all about. That's where, you know, education and youth is at the core of our culture and our community. And I can only congratulate you on what you've achieved to date, and I look forward to seeing more of it in the future. And if you can come along more often in terms of a weekly basis, we can only benefit from that fellowship. So thank you, and I'd like members to show their appreciation.